Hey guys, it's Warren here again with Copeland Small Engine Repair. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be working on a little handheld auger. It's one of those little 2-cycle 43cc Viper post hole diggers. Harbor Freight makes one by Predator. It looks exactly like this thing. You've seen these. They're just they're real handy. I mean, if you were a professional fence builder, this isn't something you would use. You'd probably want a little beaver or something, industrial. But for a homeowner that's putting up a few posts or something like that, these things are awesome. They're just real small. They work great. But the guy that brought it to me, he's already taken off the carburetor and the fuel lines and the tank grommet. But he saw a little bit of crap in the bottom of the gas tank he couldn't get out, so he didn't want to deal with that. So he brought it to me to deal with that. So you're not going to get to see me take the carburetor and everything off of it because he already did. He just brought me all this crap in a box. And what I did, I just hung the thing up from a little electric hoist so it would hang perfectly level. And I put a 1/4 inch of card cleaner in the gas tank to dissolve that crap in the bottom of the gas tank. It wasn't much. But once I get the carburetor and everything on it, I can just dump that out and put fresh fuel in it and the thing will be ready to go. So let me get it over here. I'll let you watch me. I'm going to put the carburetor, the fuel lines, the tank grommet, get all that on there and get it running. And so let me get set up and we'll get going. Alrighty, got the auger over here. Now I've just got it leaned up against my workbench. We're going to be working right here in this area. Here's the gas tank. Here's where the grommet goes. There's where the carburetor mounts. And we got the kill wires hanging over here. We got the throttle cable hanging down here, and this is how he brought it to me, just like this. And he brought me a box of crap, and in this box we got the old carburetor. It's got the old fuel lines on it. Look at this tank grommet. That old tank grommet had just turned into mush, and he left it. When I got it, this had like this old mushy rubber. The fuel had like melted it, and it was just gummed up all around here and all inside here. So I cleaned all this up. It still got a little black on it, but I got all of it off of there and on the inside of the tank, so that's all done. So we're just going to put the new carburetor and everything on it and get it running. It don't look like he brought me much of anything else. The carburetor I'm going to be using, I usually recommend, if you can get one, if the old carburetor is in decent shape, just rebuild it. Just get a kit. But a lot of times on this handheld stuff, I call this handheld, but these smaller engines, the carburetors have check valves in them. And if you can't test that check valve, get it out or get a hose on it and just figure out some way to test the check valves in it, you could be wasting your time putting a kit in it. So I replace those. If the original OEM part isn't too expensive, I will get the original carburetor. But if it's stupid expensive, I will see if I can find one made by HIPA. HIPA is an aftermarket company. They make really great aftermarket carburetors, and they're an actual company. They have a quality control department. They have people you can call and talk to. They have technicians on staff. I mean, they're not just some place in China pumping out crap that don't work. And I've been using them for like 2 years. And haven't had a single problem. Here's my new HIPA carburetor. It's exactly like the one to come off of it. So, and HIPA gives you all the fuel line, the fuel filter, everything you need, a new spark plug. And another odd thing is even the spark plugs you get from HIPA, these are decent spark plugs. I've never had one go bad, and usually when you buy an aftermarket carburetor, the spark plugs that come with them are just absolute garbage. But I have yet to have a problem with a HIPA carburetor. I mean, a HIPA spark plug, which is odd. And I decided when I started using these, I'll use them. I'll put them on everything I can until I have a problem. And so far, I haven't had a single problem. So, if the original carburetor is too much, I'll get a HIPA. So, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and get the gas tank part over with first. I'm going to put the tank grommet in there and get the hoses in there and get that all done, and then we'll put the carburetor on it. This should be very simple. Here's my tank grommet, and this all comes in a kit. You get everything you need to do this from HIPA, and I mean everything on here is like $15 or $20 with free shipping, which is insane. So let me get some lube. Whenever I put a grommet in a gas tank, I spray some lube on everything. Just help it slide in there a little bit better. And I'm going to get a screwdriver. Let me get my tools over here. Of course, I should have already done all this, but I've been a little crazy busy this morning. All right, I'm gonna set this over here. So I'm just gonna flat blade screwdriver. And you don't have to be real careful with these grommets. They don't cut real easy. They're pretty tough, so don't worry about it. Just put it up here. I start one edge of it, kind of into the hole as much as I can. And then I just take a flat blade screwdriver, kind of work the rest of it in that hole. And you want to make sure the rubber flange on the back side of that is spread out on the inside of the tank, so it's held in there good. And there's no exact way. These two holes can be turned any way, you know, they end up. And I'm gonna look in here, and my grommet is spread out in there. And one thing I'll do, I'll take the butt end of the screwdriver and put in the center of that grommet and push in real hard, and that will make the inside of the grommet spread out better. Oh yeah, now the inside of that grommet is spread out inside that hole, and it's in there nice and tight. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my hoses, and usually on anything handheld, if one of the hoses is black and you can't see through it and one of them is clear, the clear one goes to the return line for the primer bulb. So when you're pushing the primer bulb, you can see the fuel being squirted back into the gas tank, just a way you can tell, hey, everything's working. I'm going to get my carburetor, and you need to know, you know, if you don't do this a lot and you don't know which one of these is the return line, you can find out real easy. If you put your finger over one of them, there's check valves in here. So when you push down on this, it should push fuel out of one of these that goes back to the gas tank, and when you let go, it should suck it out of the fuel filter in the gas tank. So to figure out which one of these is what, put your finger, just pick one, just put your finger over one and see it doesn't affect the primer bulb. Now put your finger over the other one, and I can tell it's kind of not wanting to stand up as fast as it was. So this is the one that's sucking fuel from the gas tank, and this is the one that pushes fuel back into the gas tank, the return line. And one way you can test this, you know, even if you're not sure if that finger test doesn't work, just put a piece of fuel line over one of these and put the other end of this on your tongue, and you can feel it pushing air out of this line. You can also put it on the other one. Just shove it on there. You don't have to push it all the way down, just get it on there. And you can put the other end of this fuel line on your tongue, and you can feel it sucking on your tongue when you're pushing this bulb. See, and it will suck a vacuum, and it will hold this against my tongue. So I know this one right here is the one that goes to the fuel filter, and this is the one that takes the return line back into the gas tank to, you know, to push the fuel back into the gas tank. So I'm going to hold this over here. I know it goes like that because it would be stupid for it to go like that. So it goes like that. You know, the throttle cable comes up from the bottom, so I know the carburetor mounts like that. We know this is the fuel filter spigot and this is the return spigot. So I'm going to put the fuel filter spigot on first. So I'm going to lay the carburetor down. I'm going to get my black fuel line. I'm going to get my wire cutters. I'm just going to cut an angle on this right here. Sometimes you need to cut not just an angle, but give you a little bit longer run. They give you plenty of fuel line to do this. I'm going to taper it real good. That's some tough fuel line. They make good fuel line. And I'm going to spray some more lube on the grommet and a little on this. I'm going to poke it in there like so. Now I'm going to take my hemostats, just a pair of regular hemostats. I'm going to reach in there and grab the end of that fuel line. I'm going to pull it through. And it's amazing how tough this fuel line is. I know a lot of people are scared they're going to cut this or break fuel line with these hemostats. Man, you can stretch and pull and tug on this crap all day and it's not going to hurt it. It's not going to cut it. So see, I've got it pulled out like so. Now I'm going to cut that taper off like so. I'm going to put my fuel filter on here. And I'm going to spray a little lube on the fuel filter. I'm going to force it on there. And you want that fuel filter going to that fuel line as far as it will go. You're going to walk it on there. And that's on there. That's never going to come off. Now I'm going to sit here and look at it. And I kind of want this fuel filter to kind of land a little over to the far side away from this grommet, but lay on the bottom. You don't want a lot of fuel line inside the gas tank. You just want enough so the filter can just lay in there relaxed on the bottom of the tank. So let me push that in there. Sometimes you gotta work it because it don't want to go over there where you want it to go. I'll take my hemostats and kind of curve it over there and then let go of it. Push my fuel line in there, and I've got a little too much fuel line. I'm going to make it lay down. There we go. I'm going to pull a little bit in. So now I know I've got my, let me see if I can see it in there. I'm going to move the fuel line around. I've got an endoscope that I can look in there with, but I know a lot of you guys don't, so I'm trying to do this without using my endoscope. And so I know my fuel filter is laying in there on the bottom of the gas tank. This is my slack hanging out here. Look how much they give you. I could do this twice. So save what you got left over because you use it for something else. Now I'm going to hold my carburetor up here, and I know this goes on this big spigot right here because I already figured that out. And I'm just going to cut it off right about there. Okay, I got the one done for the fuel filter. Now we're going to do the one for the primer return. Same thing, just cut you a little taper on this fuel line. Squirt a little lube on it, stick it in the hole, force it in there. Now this one I can force in there by hand without the hemostats, but I'm going to pull it on out. And I'll have to cut the taper off just because it looks more professional than that old jagged end. And this, since it's the primer return, it just goes in there a couple inches and just stops. It don't hook to anything. And as long as it goes in there an inch or two, I mean, it could go in there 6 inches if you want it to, but I just pulled it in there a couple inches and stop. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull it over here, see about where it needs to go, and cut it off right about there. All right, I got that done. So now I just need to mount my carburetor. Let me get on my crap that came with my carburetor over here, if I can find it. I don't know what the hell I did with my stuff from my carburetor. This one right here should work fine. Well, that's not it. Well, let me stop the camera. I have misplaced. Oh, there it is. It's in this box of crap he brought me. Look at this crap. This box he brought me has a solenoid in it off of a zero turn or a ride mower. It's got 2 carburetor kits in it that don't fit this carburetor. It's got a piece of sandpaper in it. He brought me just a smorgasbord of garbage. But here's my gasket. When you put these gaskets on, this little hole right here has to line up with this little hole right here because that's the pulse hole. That's the pulse hole from the engine, and back and forth pressure has to come through that hole, go through this gasket, and go through this hole, and that's how the little carburetor pumps fuel. So make sure you line all this up when you put this together. So I'm going to hold that up there first and just make sure, yep, that's going to line up. That's right. So let me get the little air filter housing, this little thing right here. And the outside of the carburetor has an O-ring on it to seal it up against this. And you got to figure out, well, how does this go? Well, there's the choke lever. So the choke lever is going to stick out in the open. It's not going to be up here in this hole. So I'm going to hold it up like this. I'm going to hold my carburetor up how it goes. I'm going to slide it on these 2 bolts, these 2 screws. So I got it like that. Then I'm going to make sure I put my gasket on the way it goes right there. I'll just hold it up there, make sure I go straight over here and line it up. So I got all that together, and I'm going to put that on. And you want to make sure that gasket doesn't slip off and get underneath something. You know, you want to make sure it stays on these screws. I'm just going to start these with my fingers. Just start them a few threads. Now I'm going to run those in. And these are going into plastic. I believe there's a little metal nut in that plastic. I'm going to tighten down the rest of the way with a screwdriver. Now right here, don't get stupid. Don't crank down on these things like you're putting the main bolts in a 350 Chevy. You just want to get this good and tight. Okay, that's plenty tight enough. Make sure we're still in shot here. And I need to move the camera a little bit so you can see what I'm doing over here. So give me a minute to do that. I'll be right back. Okay, I got the camera moved over here. And I'm gonna get a pair of needle nose and my spray lube. And you can see I'm gonna use this little red straw in my spray lube. There's the 2 spigots on the carburetor. And we remember the bigger one was for the line coming from the fuel filter. So I'm going to put just a squirt of lube on that. I'm going to put that fuel line on like so. Should have squirted on both. I'm going to put the other one on the return line that takes the fuel back to the gas tank. And I'm going to shove that on there as far as it will go. And see that little bit of slack? You can leave it like that, or you can stick your hemostats into the gas tank and pull that little bit of slack out of there so that line is straight like that. So now they both go straight into the tank. They're not tight, they're just nice and flexible, but they're nice and straight and it just looks nice. I got that tightened down. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and put the throttle cable on. I probably should have put the throttle cable on before I put the carburetor on it, but it's right here in the open, so it's not rocket science. It just goes through that little slot. I'm going to move the throttle, turn that little nut. Now I'm going to work the throttle and make it pop in its little hole. That's done. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the new spark plug in it. I'm going to check the gap on the spark plug. Even when you get a brand new spark plug, always check the gap. I mean, I've been doing this so long I can look at it and say, yeah, that'll run, but I check them anyway. .30 thousandths. Put my spark plug in there. And like I said, the spark plugs that come with most aftermarket carburetors are just garbage. But I've never had a problem with these that come with the HIPAA products. And another weird thing is the HIPAA fuel filters for ride mowers and zero turns. Those things are freaking awesome. I got the spark plug in it. Now I'm not going to put, hang on a minute. This little thing, make sure y'all can still see what I'm doing. This little metal thing, it just goes in here and it keeps the little foam filter from getting sucked into the carburetor and pushed down in there so the choke doesn't worry. It just kind of keeps it from going in too deep. The fuel filter's in perfect. I mean, the air filter's in perfect condition. Put it in there. Now the kill wires, these 2 kill wires right here, have to hook up to this little switch in here. So make sure you plug your little kill wires onto this switch before you snap it into place. And it doesn't matter which one goes on which terminal on this kill switch, because a kill switch just connects and disconnects these 2 wires, so there's not a positive or negative. And you got to make sure your choke lever is in the down position. Gonna work this on here. This can be kind of a pain sometimes. Get that on there. That's all snapped into place. My choke works. And that's about it. Now I'm going to take a blow nozzle and I'm going to blow that old, the carb cleaner that I had in there, dissolving what little was left in the bottom of this tank. I'm going to tilt this over and blow all that crap out. And we'll stand it back up and push some fresh gas in it. And I'm not going to touch this carburetor. I'm not going to adjust it in. I'm not going to crank it before you see me crank it. I'm going to dump this out, put fresh gas in it, get it ready to crank. And I'm going to let you see me crank this for the first time. I'm not going to crank it and then tune it and then turn the camera on. I'm just going to crank it while y'all are watching me. So let me get this dumped out, put some fresh gas in it, get the gas cap on it, and we'll crank this thing up. Give me just a second to get that all ready. All right, people. That took a little while. I'm going to have to do this inside because it started raining. And, man, after the last cut, I had people showing up, dropping off, and picking up stuff, so it took me a minute. But I'm ready to crank this thing now. I haven't cranked it yet. I don't know if it's going to need to be adjusted. I will tell you that these carburetors they have one adjustment screw that's right straight down from the top. And Viper doesn't leave a hole in this plastic to adjust that carburetor. So I always make a little hole. So if it needs to be adjusted now or in the future, you can get a flat blade screwdriver in here and adjust the carburetor. But let's crank it up. I may have to adjust the carburetor if it doesn't run perfect. Sometimes you got to tweak them a little bit. A lot of times, these HIPAA carburetors, I don't have to do anything. So let's put it on run. I'm going to choke it. Let's see if it'll crank. I need to adjust it a tiny bit. I'd like to, I need to adjust it just a little bit. See if that's better. It doesn't want to idle as fast as I'd like it to. Runs like a top. I had to turn the main idle screw, the low idle screw, just a tiny, like a turn and a half to make it idle right, but that's it. I didn't have to adjust the main carb adjustment screw at all, just the little idle screw that adjusts the throttle a tiny bit, and it runs perfect. But he should be very happy with that. But anyway, I guess I'm done with that one. I'm going to set it aside, write him up a bill, and give him a call, see if he'll come pick this thing up, because I'm getting a little crowded in here, and it's raining outside, but I've got a few zero turns and ride mowers I've got to do assessments on. Thank God I've got a big tent out there, because it's been raining for 2 days. But anyway, thanks for watching my videos. If you got any comments, leave them below. I'm going to get this out of the way, write up a bill, and get on to the next thing. Thanks for watching.